Chapter 16. Chains of the Past. The dawn was cold and tense, the forest still shrouded in a thick mist that clung to the ground like an unspoken threat. Azural's camp, normally alive with activity by this hour, was disturbingly quiet, as though the earth itself were holding its breath. Talvar stood at the camp's edge, his eyes scanning the shifting shadows, his senses on high alert. A faint sound, a bird perhaps, broke the silence, and he turned, muscles taut, only to be met with stillness. But something about this quiet was wrong, too complete, as though every creature in the forest had fled. Before he could react, a shadow flitted at the edge of his vision, then another. Talvar's heart pounded as he tightened his grip on his sword, his voice a low murmur. "We have company." His warning came too late. Shadows closed in from every side, figures cloaked in darkness, their movements swift, soundless. They swept into the camp, scattering his allies into chaos. Talvar fought back fiercely, his blade flashing through the half-light, but their numbers grew overwhelming, pressing in like waves. A dark spell struck him from behind, forcing him to his knees. He caught sight of Azural emerging from her tent, her eyes fierce as she reached for her fire, but a chain woven from shadows lashed out, binding her wrists and stifling her flames. Nearby, Soraya was already surrounded, her magic shackled by a dark collar clamped around her neck. She struggled against her captors, her gaze sharp with defiance, but the shadowed figures held her fast. Talvar's vision swam as he tried to rise, only to be struck down again, his strength ebbing as the shadows closed in around them. The attackers dragged them deeper into the forest, their faces concealed, their footsteps soundless against the forest floor. Every time Azural tried to summon her fire, the chains tightened, draining her power, forcing her into silence. They were marched through the dense woods until, at last, a dark fortress loomed ahead, its black stone walls towering against the pale dawn, radiating a cold, oppressive energy that pressed down on her like a weight. Azural glared at the structure, anger flaring within her despite her bonds. The fortress was steeped in darkness, a tangible malevolence that hung in the air, making each breath feel thick, stifling. They were led through winding halls and down into the depths, where a dim chamber awaited, cold and foreboding. Shackles bound their wrists and ankles, and magical wards, etched into the stone, glowed faintly, seeping power from them as if the walls themselves fed on their strength. A figure entered the room, cloaked in shadows, his robes trailing across the floor like tendrils of smoke. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but the coldness in his voice was unmistakable. The Draconis Ignis Aeterni brought so low. Azural met his gaze with defiance, her jaw clenched as she recognized Malachar, one of Viuva's lieutenants and a master of dark magic. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he looked over each of them, lingering on Azural. "You think you can end us?" Malachar's voice was smooth, almost mocking. "You are nothing but a spark, a remnant of an age long past. Your fire cannot consume us, not here, not under my dominion." Azural's gaze didn't waver. "I've defeated worse than you." Malachar chuckled, a low, sinister sound that echoed through the chamber. With a slow, deliberate gesture, he extended a hand, dark energy spiraling from his fingertips. Azural's skin prickled with a familiar, unwelcome cold, as the energy snaked around her, lacing through her mind, prying into her memories, her very soul. She gasped as Malachar's magic twisted her memories, forcing her to relive her darkest moments, visions of those she'd failed, images of her dragon form unleashing devastation, her fire consuming everything around her. The vision shifted, showing Soraya and Talvar lost to the flames, their faces twisted in fear as her power consumed them. Each image struck her like a blow, her mind reeling as she fought to separate illusion from memory. "You are not a savior," Malachar's voice whispered, cold and relentless, weaving into her thoughts like poison. "You are a curse. All you touch turns to ash. Your strength is nothing but destruction." Azural's teeth clenched as she tried to resist, but the onslaught was relentless, grinding her strength down, feeding her doubts. She saw herself alone, her fire raging beyond control, the world around her reduced to ashes. Despair crept in, the weight of Malakar's magic pressing down like an iron vice around her heart, whispering that she was nothing but a harbinger of ruin. Then faintly she heard a voice, a whisper cutting through the darkness, steady and strong. "Azural, don't listen to him, you are stronger than this." It was Soraya, her voice reaching through the layers of dark magic, a steady, unwavering anchor. Azural clung to it, drawing strength from her friend's defiance. She closed her eyes, focusing on the fire within her, letting it rise, not as a weapon but as a light, a reminder of all she had fought for, the lives she had vowed to protect. Malakar's smile faltered as he sensed her resistance. "Defiant to the end, are you?" he sneered. "Very well. Let us see how long you can last." Azural's resolve hardened, her gaze meeting Malakar's with a fierce, unyielding flame in her eyes. "You will not break me." The chains binding her wrists and ankles began to crack, the fire within her building, fighting against the darkness. Malakar's smirk faded as he took a step back, sensing the growing power within her, her flames flickering to life despite his enchantments. The struggle intensified, Azural's fire clashing with Malakar's dark energy. She could feel his magic pressing down on her, trying to smother her flames, but she pushed back, drawing on every ounce of her strength, her very being. Talvar and Soraya watched from their own bonds, their faces tense but hopeful as they saw the defiance blazing in her eyes, a light that refused to be extinguished. Malakar, unsettled by her strength, took a step back, frustration twisting his face. "This isn't over, Draconis Ignis Aeterni," he spat, his voice laced with venom. "I will break you yet." With a sweep of his hand he motioned to the guards. "Prepare the ritual," he ordered, his tone cold and unyielding. "We will see if her fire can withstand the darkness that awaits." As Malakar left the chamber, the door slammed shut, plunging them into silence. Azural's breathing was ragged, her strength waning, but her spirit remained unbroken. She glanced over at Soraya and Talvar, giving them a nod of reassurance, even as exhaustion weighed on her. Soraya's voice, though barely a whisper, was steady with determination. "We'll find a way out, Azural. We've faced worse. This is not the end." Azural closed her eyes, letting her head rest against the cold stone behind her, feeling the pulse of her fire still burning within, steady and defiant. She knew the battle was far from over, that Malakar's plans would test her strength and resolve beyond anything she had faced. But she also knew she was not alone, that the fire within her would continue to burn, no matter how many shadows sought to snuff it out. And as she drifted into a restless sleep, her last thought was a vow. She would fight, she would endure, and she would see this through, no matter the cost.